We're going to get LLaMA2 up and running on Google Colab using GPUs. Anybody can do this because you're using Google's compute resources, so it doesn't matter what type of laptop you have. As long as you have a decent internet connection, you're good to go. So let's get right into it. You can find our Quickstart notebook in the video description. And right at the top, I've linked to the source code. This is the notebook that I used to build what we're looking at today. I also have a couple other interesting links. I've got one to the LLaMA2 model documentation. This is from GitHub for the Python library. I've also linked to the Python documentation. This can be really useful for understanding the inputs to our model. For instance, about the temperature setting, the top p-value, things like whether or not to echo the prompt. And you'll see these in use in our tutorial here. So the first thing we're going to do is go up to the top right and make sure that we're running on a GPU. I can see that we are connected to a T4 runtime. If I was to change the runtime type, I could pick a CPU or a TPU. We want this GPU for our tutorial today. So I'll start by running this first cell. This is going to go ahead and install the Python library we need. So this is finished running, and it'll give us access to the LLaMA Python library. Now we're going to load our model. I'm just going to define the name and the base name. These are going to be referenced later in our notebook. What I'm going to do is mount Google Drive so that we can use it to cache the model, because we're going to have to go ahead and download it. It's going to be about 10 gigs. And we don't want to have to do that every single time we restart the notebook, like when we come back to it tomorrow, or once it reaches the maximum time, Google's going to cut us off of the runtime. So I've given it permission to save data in my Google Drive, and I've also defined the cache directory in order where to save that. Here's where I'm referencing the model base name, which I defined above, and the cache directory. And this string here is going to correspond to where the models ends up being saved. So next we're going to have to go ahead and download the model for the first time. So in order to do that, I'm going to run this code here. You can see the model's downloading, and it's going to be about 10 gigs. Alright, so if I open up my side panel here, I can go into Drive, and I'm going to go into the directory that I specified for my cache, and I can see now that this model's in here. And inside of the snapshots folder, I can see the bin file that I'm going to need right here. So I can actually go ahead and copy that path and compare that to what I've put into this next cell. So let's get out of here, and we can see what's going on. So I have my cache directory, I have my model, and I'm just going to make sure the snapshot ID matches, and it does. And then I have my model base name there. Great, so I'm happy with this next cell. Now I'm going to go ahead and load the model. Here I've set the context window to the maximum size that we can for LLaMA2. So now we're ready to feed LLaMA2 a prompt. I'm going to ask it to evaluate my book idea, and I've told it that it's angry and I want it to talk to me in a rude tone. My story idea is a sort of cute tale about a man and a dog. We'll see what it tells me. Now, when you're running prompts through any model, it's important to know how many tokens you're feeding in. Not only does this affect the cost if you're using ChatGPT's API, but it also affects the model's ability to answer you correctly, because there's a maximum context window, which is about 4K tokens for LLaMA. So if I check that, in our case, this prompt is 100 tokens. So we're totally fine to feed this in, and we're expecting some logical output. In this cell, I define the maximum number of tokens for the response, the temperature setting, these top P variable. There's various parameters you can tune within LLaMA to get the types of results you're looking for. So let's see. What a sappy story. Who would want to read that? It's so cliche and predictable. It's still just a bunch of sentimental fluff with no real substance. I wouldn't waste my time reading this book, let alone write it. This will get you up and running using LLaMA2 on Google Colab on GPUs. As you can see, it's producing results really quickly for us. If you liked my trick of using the cache directory, throw me a like on this video. I really appreciate it. And if you want to see more like this, check my channel, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Ugh, what a sappy story. Who would want to, it actually did such a good sort of angry response. I think my story's cute. I like my story.